we're now live, so be aware that everything you said is being recorded and everybody can hear what we're saying. So we're going to be very good and stick to team etiquette, aren't we? Well, first thing I'm going to do tonight, it gives me great pleasure to welcome a new member to the governance team in the name of Chloe Gaskill. So if we'd all go around the table in a second and introduce ourselves, but on the back of that, Layla, I believe this is your first operational board teams meeting.
It is, yep. It's ready to take
Layla
over
works
to
in
Chloe.
corporate support, and of course, Chloe is now the new member of staff under Jane's wing in governance. So if we could all be kind enough to go through and introduce yourself so that Layla and Chloe both know who the faces are. We'll start with you, Holly, why not?
Thank you, Bob. My name's Holly Johnson. I'm Customer Engagement and Community Development Manager.
Tony?
Hi, I'm Tony Home. I'm the leaseholder representative on the Operations Board.
Helen, good evening.
Helen Samuel, Head of Finance and Income.
Jane, I think you're probably known to Chloe, but just for anybody who doesn't know your face. You're muted, Jane.
I'm Jane Hayward and I'm Governance Manager.
Layla, it's party time. It's your chance.
Hi, I'm Layla. I'm here doing the minutes from corporate support.
And of course, the man who needs no introduction, he's had that many comebacks, it's unbelievable, Carl Willis.
Oh, bless you. Carl Trim Willis, Head of Housing Management, that's fine. It's easier to say.
Jerry, good evening.
Evening, everybody. Jerry Pearce, Derby City Council for Chaddersden Ward.
It says Kate, but I think it's Steve, isn't it?
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. My name is Steve Bayliss. I'm Head of Repairs.
Good evening, Lucy.
Hi, I'm Lucy Kerr. I'm one of the councillors on the board. I'm Lucy from Little Over Ward. And I think that's it, really. Thank you.
Who have I missed off? Who's missing?
I'm here, Bob.
Who's that?
It's Mark Watson.
Oh, Mark. Yeah, sorry, Mark. I knew you were doing your bit tonight. Nice to see you. Hopefully
and you, yeah. Hello, everyone. My name's Mark Watson. I'm the Empty Homes Coordinator for Derby Homes.
Well known to me and a lot of other people at Derby Homes. I'll leave it at that. Jeanne, you had a busy afternoon, but you've made it.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Bob. I'm Jeanne Shepherd. I'm the Vice Chair of the Operational Board and I also sit on the main board and I'm the Chair of Governance as well.
Okay. I take it you've all read the reports.
You haven't introduced Alan Martin yet.
Sorry?
We've just got Alan, Ian and then Josh as an FYI.
Alan Martin from the DACP.
Alan, I can't see you anywhere. My name on my screen. I'm sorry. I do apologise for that. And was it Ian Yeomans, was it?
Yes. Thanks, Chair. Ian Yeomans here. I'm the Head of Capital Works.
Right. Hopefully now I've got a full
house. And Sarah.
Just me. I'm Sarah Olive. I'm the Corporate Performance Lead at the City Council.
Sarah, good evening. I'm sorry I missed you off there. I wasn't aware you were online.
No worries.
Okay, take care. Right, that's introductions down. We've done the team etiquette thing.
Yes, it's with sadness really to announce that Win Buchan, who many of you will know, I think we're just getting the slides up now. We've done a couple of photos. So Win Buchan, who many of us will know, has sadly passed away. Win has been involved for as long as I can remember, and in fact, you know, the photo there is when I first met Win back in 2003. So sadly, Win passed away on the 4th of February. For those that are interested, there is a service tomorrow at the English Martyrs Church in Alveston at 11 a.m. and that will be followed by a service at Market Crematorium. But we just wanted to share a few reflections, and as I say, this is when I first met her back in 2003 at the DACP. We'd just moved from Bowden House. For those of us that have been around long enough to remember, we moved from Bowden House to St Peter's House, and and obviously we set up the new DACP, the new resource centre there as well. Jen, would you just share the next slide? Thank you. So there's some very familiar faces on there, and sadly many of others who have passed. But Win was always a huge part of the tenants and residents movement. You know, always attending meetings, getting involved in subcommittees. And essentially, I think Maria summed her up quite nicely. She said, Win is the best example of a powerful force in a small package. And anybody who ever met Win would, I'm sure, agree with that. And Win, of course, was a leaseholder and a leaseholder representative. And I think it's fair to say, and I'm sure Tony would agree with me, that leaseholders could be very confident that Win would always have their needs and interests very much at heart and be very much represented at various levels across Derby homes. Next slide, please. So I'm sure we've all been on the receiving end of that glare. Win saw through everything. There was absolutely no pulling the wool over Win's eyes. And I think that's what made her such a strong activist and a strong volunteer within the tenant movement. Win was always looking at, forward, looking at opportunities, scrutinising, so when I saw this photo, which Paul Cole kindly shared, I just thought that kind of sums it up. Always on the ball, always listening, always looking for where there was opportunity to improve. Next slide, please. And she didn't just look and listen. She very much knew how to make a very well informed point. Win was always very articulate, very passionate, that we at Derby Home do the right thing. And I think there will definitely be a legacy that Win will leave in our tenant movement. And the last slide, please. When I saw this picture, I thought this kind of sums up Win perfectly. Planting a tree for future generations. Reflecting back on the 20 years that I've had the pleasure of working with Win, she's sown the seed, nurtured and nourished a great deal more over the last 20 years through her volunteering activism. And I think, as a result, unbeknown to many people, countless customers and leaseholders actually receive an improved service and benefit from the outcomes that Win has championed over those years. And the last time I actually saw Win was last year, and it was in the local of mine. And we just had a moment where we could chat briefly, but warmly, and we were very much reminiscing about the old days. And so, Win has been a real big part of Derby Homes' story. And what we'd like to do at Derby Homes is we're going to be planting a tree in Win's memory because we feel that will symbolise her unwavering commitment to making things better for the future. So very sad, but a real legacy that's been left, and we felt that we wished to share that tonight with the operational board. So thank you, Bob, for giving us those few moments.
No, I think it was time well spent, and it's a fitting tribute to poor old Win, but she was a force to be reckoned with.
Definitely
in a positive way.
Yeah, she was a stalwart of the Leaseholders Forum.
Yes.
She was. Yep.
I first met her when she worked at Rolls-Royce, and they must have been in the 1980s, trying to get projects approved by her. She was real stickler for detail.
Absolutely.
As we all know.
Absolutely. So yes, thank you.
No problem. Now, the next item says admissions of late items. To my knowledge, I've not received any admissions of late items. Unless anybody knows anything of interest. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, declarations of interest. And I think, Alan, you've got a declaration to make.
Yes, item A4, just to remind you that I am the Vice Chair of DACP. I'm not a director and I have no financial interest in it, but I need to declare it as we're looking at the annual grant.
Thank you. Leila, have you got that now? Thank you. This comes to Chair's announcements. First of all, as we're all online tonight, if you could be so kind as to put your hand up as Alan did, if you've got something to say, because it's the only way I'll be aware of what you're doing. I'll be thinking you're waving otherwise. So if you've got anything to say, please use the system and use the hand facility. I appreciate that. Now, I feel I should just mention something about the operational board reports, that the reports are drafted with an estimated position at the board date. So the date of the board, actually their estimated position, in this case 9th of March. Unless the report specifically states a status date, that is because the reports are drafted up to 6 weeks before the meeting, and it makes sense to report what is expected to be current position at that time. And we just felt it was just poignant to mention that to you. And Michael Kirk is looking for a volunteer to sit on the from the operational board to sit on the audit committee. Any takers? And that applies to to operational board members. Anybody willing to volunteer for the audit committee? Well, if you do, you could feed that through. Probably Jane's the best person to feed it through. Okay, any questions? That's fine, thank you very much. So that brings us on to minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of December. And what we'll do as usual is we'll go through first for accuracy and then secondly for matters arising. Okay, page 1, page 2, page 3. Let's see, just stick your hand if anything comes to mind. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. And page 7. Okay, so we'll now go to matters arising. Page 1, anybody? Page 2, item 2281. You'll see that it says there that I would like to trial agenda items with those time slots allocated to assist in the flow of the discussions. It's been decided to put that on hold for the time being, but it's not been dismissed into hand, and I think we'll look at that, revisit that with the governance team at a later date. That's all I've got on that page. Page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, and page 7. Can I take those as accuracy and no matters arising? Thank you. Item 7, action monitoring status. Who's going to cover that?
Well, Bob, they're both actually on the agenda for tonight, so
that's
they're
fine.
Covered on the agenda.
That's fine. Great. Thanks, Carl. I've got no questions from any members of the public. I'm not aware of any questions from the members of the public unless anybody knows differently.
No.
Right. No. Okay. We'll now move on to item 9, performance management, quarter 3.
Hi everyone. So you're probably used to seeing Kaz.
That's where I know you from.
I'll be kind of stepping in for Kaz going forward. So I have what we do each quarter. So we're going to be looking at the quarter 3 report, which is up until the end of December. And what we've produced is a set of slides, which I'll go through now with you, and to accompany that there is the written report as well.
Thank you.
So if you just bear with me a second. Share my PowerPoint. Sorry, I've got a lot of things open. Right, I'll just put it in presenting mode so you can see it full screen. So goes quite slow.
But let me.
So yeah, so you've probably seen this format before. We do this each ops board every quarter.
Yeah.
So just to give you a summary, so what we'll do first of all is just look at the quarter 3 highlights, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail around the actions being taken and some of the context relating to that. Overall, I can't see, I can only see you, Bob, at the moment. So if anybody has any questions, do just shout up.
That's your misfortune to see me.
So yeah, so as at quarter 3, so the end of December, overall performance has been exactly the same in terms of measures with quarter 2. So as we saw in quarter 2, 77% of measures at the end of quarter 3 are have either met or due to exceed the quarterly target, and 81% of measures are forecast to exceed the year-end target as well. So there are 9 measures in total that don't have a target, and there's also 9 measures that we haven't reported on yet because they're collected annually. But in total, we're looking at a basket of 35 measures that we monitor either monthly or quarterly. So positively, it's been consistent with quarter 2. Some real positives to pull out there is that there's 3 of the measures continue to perform ahead of target, and that's more than 10% ahead of target. And these same measures are also forecast to exceed their annual targets by at least the same amount when we see that in quarter 4. 17 of these measures are on track with their quarterly targets. And as I mentioned, 81% are expected to achieve their year-end targets. So overall, it's a really, really positive picture. Just to bring out some of the detail around those key achievements. So given the current climate, it's a real positive to show that the number of tenants evicted due to rent arrears hasn't moved. We've only actually had 6 year to date since the start of April, and there was actually 0 in December as well. Tenant satisfaction, with listen to feedback, year to date we're well ahead of target, and we're well ahead to exceed the target for the year end as well. Empty homes, a couple of really positives are the 2 measures linked to those. So the average time to relet local authority housing is ahead of target for the quarter, as well as rent loss through properties being vacant. Positively, all building safety measures, I know this is a compliance area, they're all still green and on track, which is really, really good. From a satisfaction perspective, we have 8 measures in total, and 7 out of 8 of those are have either exceeded their quarterly targets or forecast to exceed their annual targets as well. I'll go into a bit more detail around the one measure which is a real challenge and has been consistently since quarter 2 as well. But also linked to that, there is an action plan in place, and we've obviously got Mark here now as well to help with that. And I thought it was worth pulling out that given the current climate and the cost of living, rent collection has continued to hold its own in terms of collection as a percentage of rent due. So there's some really, really positives in there. I can go into a little bit more detail as to why those have. If I just pull out some of the exceptions, it's really good that we've got those positives, but there are in total 7 areas of concern that are kind of flagged to either miss their year-end target and forecasted target, or have missed their quarterly target as well. They are the same measures that came up in quarter 2.
Right.
So that it's not like there's any new ones. The persistence with average working days lost due to sickness continues, and percentage of closed stage 1 complaints escalating to stage 2, that has moved into red, but there are reasons behind that as well, which I can go into a bit more detail. And then you'll see there that there's 5 measures that were not forecast to meet their annual target set. So I thought it was quite helpful just to pull out as a summary, first of all, before we go into details as to why things are as they are.
Thanks.
One thing that I just thought is worth flagging, because if you just looked on paper, it looks okay at the moment. But obviously, we know with the cost of living crisis and that there are emerging risks around rent arrears. So whilst 3 of the measures linked to rent arrears or total arrears currently look like they're on track to hit their annual target, there are concerns that it may shift during the next quarter because it's been such a kind of positive first couple of quarters to the performance year. We are still on track, but we do expect that to change over the next quarter, so that could shift. I don't think that's particularly new news because a lot of the thing when we were setting targets, we couldn't anticipate what was going to happen.
No.
But it's worth flagging those emerging challenges.
And I appreciate that.
Great. So just to go into a bit more detail, I won't read out the slides. I'll leave those up. But just kind of summarise basically, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So in terms of satisfaction with new homes, let me just bring my notes up. The areas around here, satisfaction with new home. Let's bring that up. Sorry, it's here. So just to flag, so no new build properties were surveyed this particular quarter. So they were only relets and acquisitions. There were 60 responses in total, and 46 of those were actually satisfied. Residents were satisfied, but there were 7 dissatisfied and 7 that were kind of on the fence with neither satisfied nor dissatisfied.
Right.
So I think it is important to pull out here, and I know Holly's on the meeting as well. There is the new role in place, so I believe that's Mark in terms of Empty Homes team. So I think already, I won't put words in his mouth, but there's been a review of processes and proposals to go forward to board for approval.
Right.
To make changes, and there is an action plan in place to address the main themes that are coming out of these surveys. The only thing with this particular measure is it was read in Q2 as well, so it's not seen any improvement from quarter to quarter, but I am aware of that there is action in place to address that, especially with Mark coming on board.
I think Jan's got a question for you.
Thank you, Bob. I didn't know if you'd seen my
Sorry, I
hand.
can't see.
Yeah, no, and I know that you couldn't. So yeah, just wanted to say I'm really pleased to see that we have got the action plan in place for this, and also that with Mark in post specifically looking around this area as well, because you're right, it is something that we flagged up at operational board for a number of meetings now. Yeah. And I think it's a really positive move and a positive reflection on Derby Homes that they've picked up on the comments from the operational board and looked and obviously looked from a tenant's perspective of what things might be going wrong and looking at how we can resolve that. So really pleased to see that action has been put in place, and looking forward to hearing some feedback once Mark has been able to do some work around that and looking how it can sort of change this going forward. So thank you.
No pressure then, Mark. Thanks, Jan. Sorry, carry on, sorry.
No, that's fine. So just moving on to non-decent homes. So despite the fact that, again, this one hasn't particularly moved from quarter to quarter either. There are, I think there was additional 3 properties that are now classed as non-decent compared to Q2, and they were mostly around structural defects on roof structures. There is a range. I thought Ian might want to come in to add some context here, and I know that there's some options being looked at. So if I hand over to Ian just to add the context and the actions around that.
Apologies, Chair. I've had a new computer last week, and it keeps turning itself off every other day. So it just happened at that moment. Yeah, the reason there are 3 properties added in was Constable Lane was missed off the measure last month. There were 3 of the bungalows that are on what we call the Breton Avenue scheme were missed off the bottom, so they're in fact 73 instead of 70. Some very good progress on this at the moment. We've now we had a meeting with Homes England in December, and they are prepared to fund works on these bungalows if they are empty, and they deem them moribund. So what they've agreed to, where we're at is we're just about to have send out another communique with the residents out there, where we're going to have when properties become decant, empty up there, we're trying to get a body of 10 properties up there, such that we can redevelop the top end of the site for those that are interested. And at the moment, 70% of the residents on that scheme have opted for, expressed an interest in the rebuild proposals.
Right.
So we've got an architect up there going to work up a scheme, and we're going to have a lovely design day with some customers to get their input as to what they'd like to see, and
that's
move
good.
it forward. Yes. So it's really encouraging, and Homes England have been nothing but supportive on it. So that's really good.
Tony, I think you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick one on that, Ian. I believe there are a couple of leaseholders down there. Are they happy with what's going on?
There are lots of leaseholders, Tony. Yes, but I think there's 19. I think. Well, not leasehold owners, certainly. Yeah, we've got to work with everyone, and we're not going to. That project will have to be as forensic a construction project as we can get. So we intend probably doing. If you look at No Bretton Avenue, it's a bit like a fish fins, on a scaly fish, and we tend to do like one fin at a time and do it forensically and work with. And we've communicated with with people of all tenure types on there, so everyone knows what's going on. We've actually employed a communications consultant, so we've gone a lot further than we normally would do, because of the sensitive nature of the project, and the fact people love living there. So we don't want to change that,
No.
So so that's key. So yes, Tony, we're really on board with bringing everyone on board.
Good.
Thank you. Sarah?
Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. So just in regards to new homes, again, this hasn't really moved massively between quarter 2 and quarter 3. We're still looking at a shortfall of about 20 for the year-end target, looking to deliver 40 out of the 60. I don't know whether Ian had his hand up again.
Yeah. Can I just add a bit of colour here?
Of course you can.
I thought it was still up.
This is not the problem we've had with this measure, and they're all linked together in a way, i.e. homes started, homes delivered, number of new affordable homes over the life of Derby Homes, is the fact that the acquisition programme, where we buy properties on the open market to expend capital receipts, that has really struggled this year to find the number of properties. The market has changed considerably, and we struggle for the amount we've got to spend and the amount we've got to spend on refurbing them to buy sufficient numbers of properties. And so we went for a long period early in the year where we weren't able to buy anything. And of course, everything we do buy goes through either the voids team if it's got a minimal amount of refurb, or the capital works team, and we have had a drop off in work in that area. So that's where the hit's been. It's not been on the new build programme, although I would say it happens to all. You'll all probably be aware that Keep Motor building some properties, bungalows for us on the Rolls-Royce site, and they were due to be handed over initially in quarter 3. That was extended to quarter 4, and now it's going to be in quarter 1 next year. And the main issue we've had with those, the beautiful bungalows, is the fact that when we tried to put the sprinkler systems in, we found the water mains were inadequate, and so we've had to get Severn Trent back out to try and relay the water mains, which has caused a big problem. So even the largest contractors have problems. So every sort of project you have, if you analysed it, there are issues behind the scenes, which 75% of the time no one ever finds out about, and the job gets delivered and everyone's laughing and smiling and delighted with the end result. But when the impact on performance indicators, then we bring them to you for well, for your information. So it's mainly the acquisition program that's been impacted this year, and the market out there has changed significantly. So it's had a bit of an impact on us.
Thanks, Ian. Back to you, Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks, Ian. That's why it's so important to get that context from you, because obviously we could just present the figures. We need that context as well, so that's really helpful. So just a couple of other areas to highlight, and again, not to sound like a broken record, sickness is something that has been kind of an issue certainly since Q2, but certainly over the last 12 months. It continues to be red. It's likely to miss target when the target was set. However, it is important to kind of put some context around this as well, in terms of it's not actually declined since Q2, so it's not like the picture is worsening, and it has improved when compared to the same period last year. In addition to that, the City Council is also experiencing similar problems. We're forecasting over 10 working days lost by the end of the financial year, which is the highest since 2016-17. And externally, there has been a lot of research done which shows that 2021 across the whole country was the highest levels of sickness across all sectors for the last 10 years as well. So just want to highlight that while it is a significant problem, it's not bespoke to Derby Homes. It is a national issue.
I think Tony's got a question for you.
Yeah, I saw someone's hand come up.
Just a quick one for information on this. In your report on absences in the thing, it says long-term sickness has fallen down to 5.36 days, and short-term sickness is down to 4.93 days. Is 5 days the difference between long-term and short-term absence, or is there some other subtlety?
I think that, yeah, it's a range of contributing factors, really. So I don't think it's as clear cut as that. Interestingly, there is a difference with Derby Homes compared to, say, the council in terms of long-term absences, because we have seen a drop within the City Council. So it is worth whether we can do some deep dive analysis on sickness bespoke to Derby Homes, because that's what we've just completed in the City Council as well, or tie those two kind of pieces together. It might be worth having a look at that. But no, it is a mixture of long-term and short-term absence within Derby Homes, and I know that can skew the figures sometimes when your long-term absence is significant as well.
Sarah, it might be a good idea if you're talking about that long-term dive. It might be interesting to see what it reveals.
Yeah. Well, there is a group that's being set up within the City Council purely to look at sickness as well. And my head of service is leading that analysis. So I can certainly recommend that we where we can, and resource dependent, we can pull that Derby Homes data into that.
And I think it'd help put things into perspective, Derby Homes versus City Council, I think, if that's the term to use.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to pitch it like that. But again, it's similar reasons for absence as well. Stress and anxiety is the top.
Yeah.
Musculoskeletal and COVID are the kind of three top reasons for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's just a bit more detailed information. Yep. And then finally, I think I've flagged this. It was just around the rent arrears. So there's a lot of information on here. It is just to highlight that it is a national trend. We did see a dip around after Q2, which reflects the kind of Christmas period, which we expected. And whilst we are currently showing that we're on track to meet our annual target, it has been highlighted that there is concern about hitting that. I know there's a number of actions in place to improve monitoring, such as monthly write-offs are being kind of tracked monthly now. There's a new debt collection system that's been introduced for former tenants to make that collection a bit more timely and easier to monitor. So again, it's just to flag that we don't quite know what Q4 or the year-end position is going to look like for rent arrears at present.
Okay.
And I think that was it.
Yeah, and may I say, on behalf of the operations board, I do like the way that the performance management is displayed these days. I've gone away from just loads and loads of figures, and I think your little bits that you add to it help us understand it better. So thanks for that. Oh, Tony, got a hand up? You're muted, Tony.
Thank you for that. Just one thing on the rent arrears. Reading the report again, I noticed you've introduced a tenancy ready course for the Derby Adult Learning Service. I just wondered what that covered. I mean, presumably, normally when you initiate a new tenancy, you run through all the requirements. So, you know, are tenants going to take up an extra bit of information?
I was going to say I don't mind Carl answering that.
Yeah, go. Yeah, I was going to nominate you.
Thanks, Carl. So the tenancy ready course is something that we started looking at just over a year ago now, to give out to different customers, not just those who are in our tenancies already. The tenancy ready course covers things like, you know, how to be a good neighbour, what kind of utility bills and budgeting should look like, what you can expect from being in private rented sector and social housing, and kind of a bit of an understanding of all around what it is to be a good tenant. So it's something that we've been rolling out with Derby Adult Learning Service, and Derby Adult Learning Service have been fantastic for tailoring a course and creating it with us. And we have been mainly targeting people in the housing options area at the moment, so people that aren't necessarily in our tenancy. But the next course that we are looking at running, I think it's the 26th of April, we are also going to be getting some complex needs teams and tenancy sustainment teams involved as well as offering it to new tenants that have just joined Derby Homes. So that's what the course is. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, sounds very useful.
Yeah, thank you. It was actually based similarly on a model that is in Birmingham called Roof Over My Head. So it's a kind of similar course if you want to do a bit more research on their success as well.
All good stuff. Can only be positive. Thanks, Tony. Right, if we've got no more questions on that part, we'll move on to Part B, supplementary questions. Now, hopefully, I've seen the questions, and hopefully everybody's satisfied with the answers that they got. You've all had a copy from Louise and the corporate support team. That brings us on to the forward plan, A2, and I think that might be covered tonight, is it? Forward plan.
Jane, are you covering that?
Yes, the forward plan that's being distributed in the pack is basically as it's agreed at the moment. Are there any comments regarding that at all? No? We'll leave it as it is then and then roll it on until the next meeting.
Thanks, Jem. And moving on, as part of the Holly Carl show tonight, we'll have Holly with your Youth Alliance.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll take the lead, and then Carl can always come and join in with the double act, I'm sure, as we move on later. So the first report that I am presenting tonight is the Youth Alliance grant for 2023-24. So it is to ask the operational board for approval for the continued grant commitment of £100,000 for the Youth Alliance. For those who don't know, if we want to circle back to what the Youth Alliance is, it's a collective ambition that supports small SMEs, so you know, different voluntary sector organisations, as well as Derby Homes and Derby City Council, to co-design and deliver youth provision in the city. This particular grant supports Derby Homes' children and young people strategy, which is why we're so keen to continue to support it. And the Youth Alliance really is about delivering preventative diversionary activities across the city. It's adding value to Derby Homes, I would say, as we are not on our own a specialist in youth services. And so by working as an alliance with other specialised organisations across the city, we are able to provide more value and share networking opportunities that we wouldn't be able to do if we were doing it on our own. So we align working in partnership to capitalise on all of that networking, and the report really, a lot of the summary of what the Youth Alliance have been doing is in section 4.4. Some of the key drivers of the Alliance is in there. And then in section 4.5, I've just gone on to talk about the productivity of what the Youth Alliance has been doing over the past year, as well as what they're looking forward to over the next year. So I don't want to go reading through it all because I know that obviously you're going to time me, aren't you, Bob?
I am, I'm timing you, believe you me.
I guess for me, it's just about the Youth Alliance, that it's about creating the wider impact for the city by working with other organisations and not working on our own. It's about increased productivity because we are not a specialist in youth activities, but we do acknowledge that young people are very much part of our future in Derby. And so we're trying to create better opportunities by working as part of an alliance than we would have done on our own. So that is why I am asking the operational board for £100,000 for a continued support to this grant. I don't know if Carl wants to add anything extra.
Not that I like to have the last word, but
no.
It's in the report, but obviously this is already kind of within the budget, so it's not an additional ask of anything. And just to echo what Holly said, I mean, it's a really good report. It really outlines the scale and scope of what the Youth Alliance can be involved in, which we could never dream to be involved in if we was to try and lead this on our own. So it absolutely makes sense to work in partnership. So but yeah, if as far as the financial implications, it's already sat in there. It's contained within the existing budget.
Jeanne, I think you want to ask a question.
Just a comment, really, just to say I really support this. I think it's excellent. I really like the way that the Youth Alliance has been developed, that it's made up of lots of small community SMEs as well. I thought the report itself was a very good report as well. So don't know whether Holly or Carl did it, but you know.
I did it. No, I didn't.
Me?
Holly did it.
Kyle took the credit, but Holly did it.
So yeah, so I thought it was a really well-written report, and it gives loads of information and all the positive stuff about what's happened and what's going to happen, and really like the equality implication stuff as well, Holly. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Jeanne.
And I echo your comments, Jeanne. Tony?
Yeah, good report. I'm quite happy with the £100,000 grant. I'd just like to know, how do you monitor the spend and how is it audited?
So I think the main difference to note with a grant report compared to commissioning the Youth Alliance is that the monitoring and auditing is quite different. But how we do it is I have a quarterly meeting, if not more than quarterly, to be honest, a lot of the time, with Community Action Derby, who are the main conduit for the Youth Alliance grant. So I meet with them frequently, understand what they're doing with the money, have a bit of a steering and input in how they're spending it. But also, more importantly, the purpose of the Youth Alliance is that actually we don't give too much of a steer, and we are actually granting it to Community Action to discuss how it's spent across the Alliance. So I think that's something that is quite different to what we do when we commission. We are actually saying, you guys are the experts, you know where the money should be spent, and you know the best places and the biggest need of where this money is. So as much as we can help monitor, steer and make sure we're getting value for money from it as much as we can, it's also really important that the Alliance are allowed to move with what needs they have for the service. But I do meet with them frequently to discuss it and make sure that everything's ticking over and according to plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. The other thing, obviously, with what's been going on in Derby generally, does it cover knife and gun crime?
Yes, it does. They work very closely with Derby City Council as well. So it's part of the Stronger Communities Board on there, and there is very much that conversation about keeping our communities safe, and it comes up very frequently, and a lot of their due diligence as well about safeguarding. Each of the groups that are joined to the alliance have to perform certain amount of checks and have the same ambition as what the alliance is set out and scoped for. So yeah, it's in there.
Thanks, Holly.
Oh,
No, I was just going to, Tony's first point's a really good one, because historically, like Holly said, we're not experts at Derby Homes, whereas historically we would sometimes prescribe exactly what we wanted to see happen with that money. And of course, if we acknowledge we're not experts in youth work, then why are we designing the service? So actually, we're very much in a realm now of co-production alongside those partners in the city. You know, we know what we need to achieve on our estates. They're the ones who tell us how's the best way to achieve that. And it's working really well. And what it enables them to do is draw in additional funding on top. So they're able to use our 100,000 to match fund with others to attract more money into the city.
thanks for that, Carl. Okay, I don't see any other hands up. So are we happy to approve the application for the grant of £100,000? Thank you. Before we move on, Sarah, if you want to get off, that's fine. Unless you've got anything else you'd like to add anywhere.
No, that's fine. I can leave if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Right, bye. And Holly, double act Mark 2,
Yeah.
A4, DACP.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. So the DACP, or for those who don't know, the Derby Association of Community Partners, this report is asking for a grant for £27,400 to grant to the DACP for the next financial year. What we'd like to do with this grant is mirror what we had last year with the continuation of funding. So we would be looking to grant fund an initial £10,000 for halfway through the year, and then on completed spend of that £10,000, we would be granting another £10,000 to the DACP. So the DACP, for those who don't know, their main business is about creating more sustainable communities and really focusing on grassroots organisations to create sustainable communities. So they work to grant fund different community groups and voluntary non-for-profit organisations to deliver different services within Derby based on that need in the community. The DACP have undergone a few changes over the past couple of years, and so this year there's been a really revitalised focus on different things which I've outlined in 4.5. So, for example, introducing code of conduct, looking at a graphic designer to relaunch the logo and the website. So the logo has been confirmed now, and there will be a relaunch soon. They've undergone a review of their application paperwork and their processes, and they're also making sure that their accounts and articles are updated. So that's what they've been doing over the past year, as well as they've been working on a lot of different funding applications and reviewing them, which I've outlined in section 4.8. As you mentioned earlier, Chair, these reports are only as good as the time that they're written. So 6 weeks ago, this was the status, but I can confirm after having a really productive meeting last week, and I can see Alan smiling at that, I can confirm that they've actually overspent with the last ones that have been by about, is it £29? I think it is, Alan. So, oh, you're just on mute, Alan, sorry.
Yeah, £29.
£29. So with
we'll let you off.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So they've done a really great job of really renovating the DACP this year and making sure that they're spending in a sustainable way, though, let's note. So I think the one thing I've mentioned in 4.9, which I'd quite like to draw your attention to, is that the example of sustainable partnerships, which the DACP are looking at really seriously. So they're making sure that with these funding applications that they're reviewing and the amounts that have been applied for example, in 4.8, they're not just saying, yes, you put in an application and we will give you the full amount. They're actually really considering how they're spending their money and making sure that the impact is going further by working with other organisations and linking in, so that it's not just, you know, a one-off funding application. The project will run for a year and then they've run out of money. They're really trying to gather momentum with these smaller grassroots organisations, which I think is a really positive thing for the DACP to doing. The other thing that I'll just note is that the DACP are getting a little bit older. They will be 30 years old in financial year 24-25. So after a really useful conversation, which Carl might go into more detail later, we have a couple of plans already in place for what we could be doing over the next year, which Helen might want to cover her ears for, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So yes, I would like to recommend that the board continue to grant fund the DACP.
You little teaser.
I'll let Carl come in now.
May I say how nice it is? I believe, I've been just looking at some figures, and I believe you confirmed it tonight, that it's been a case of use it or lose it, and you've spent the whole grant, and that is really good to see. So well done. and now £29 owing to the well done Carl.
Yeah, just really to add that, you know, if we and again, I mean, Holly's stolen most of mine and Alan's thunder. Do you know what I mean? but you know, as you know, the DACP is going to celebrate its 30th. And actually, that's a real achievement in the world of tenant movement, because, you know, we see up and down the country, a lot of federations have fallen by the wayside and have kind of wrapped up business, whereas in Derby, you know, we've still got that legacy and the unique position the DACP occupies in being able to do that really grassroots level seed funding into projects that can really get them up and off the ground. You know, we actually met at Tintagel Close, didn't we, Alan, the other week? And, you know, that in itself is just a wonderful example of how the DACP actually does have quite a unique opportunity to others to be able to get into communities and create and support those really sustainable projects that are really meeting the needs of our customers. So yeah, it's great. And watch this space for the party in 24-25.
When you said 30 years, 30, I thought you were going to ask for £30,000 there for a minute. Oof.
Look, Helen always panics when there's a conversation about money and me. So we'll cross that bridge as and when.
I'm sure you will. Are we, DA Operational Board, are we happy to approve the grant? It's been spent well, and I think what's good for me is that it's not, you don't always get what you ask for. You get what the DACP think you need to do the thing. And I think that's a real positive change, you know, perhaps in the past with the DACP. And I say this in a positive way, that somebody asks for something, nobody would have a question, whereas now I know from experience that they sit there, well, do they need all this money? What are they going to do? So you've got it really wrapped up there, guys, and you're spending money wisely. Thank you. And that was a vote of yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, Helen, are you taking this next one up?
I am, yeah. Please bear with me though, it's my first time.
Nah, over to you, Helen.
So the financial
Jane, sorry,
inclusion...
Jane.
Oh, sorry.
Jane, would you say something?
Sorry to butt in before you start, Helen.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, with any strategies or policies, if you could use the template header, please, that was circulated some time ago. I notice on some of them that are going through, it's still the old header. So if you could just pop that in, please, before you actually file them across to us. That's it.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Blame Michael. Blame Michael.
Thanks, Jane. I'll report that over. So this is to recommend to Operational Board for the approval of the Financial Inclusion and Capability Strategy. This is for 2023 to 26, and also the associated action plan, which is attached as well. This was last reviewed in February 2020, and this is its formal 3-year review of this under this policy. The strategy itself is for overarching financial inclusion objective and to remove the barriers and provide opportunities for residents to improve their confidence and motivation attitude, skills and knowledge. The strategy itself goes through current position within the organisation. It goes on to discuss energy efficiency and creating warmer homes, apprenticeship and volunteering initiatives, communicating financial inclusion initiative to residents, also future priorities within that strategy, and then going on to implementation, outcomes and benefits.
Thank you. Any questions so far for Helen? Lucy?
Lucy? You're on mute still, Lucy.
And Tony, you've got a question as well, yeah?
I thought the strategy is really readable for the policy, which is really nice. The only question I had about it though is there's a lot of talk about budgeting, and there is quite a lot of talk about how to increase your income, but it seems to hedge around any mention of spending. Because, you know, for example, in 2.6, it says the ability to maximise and manage income is an invaluable life skill. So is knowing whether you ought to be spending.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just felt it was slightly coy in that it talks about budgeting, but it doesn't talk about spending. And that's, I just think there's a couple of places, possibly one of them in 2.6, where there could be reference to talk about wise spending or something. Yeah. But generally, I think it's very accessible. I think it's well written. It seems to cover a lot of ground very effectively.
Okay.
There are one or two very small typos, and I'll send them to you separately.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Lucy.
Tony, then Jean.
In the report, it talks about sort of avoiding getting into financial debt. We used to get a lot of information on credit unions. Do they still exist? And do Derby Homes still recommend them?
There are credit unions, aren't there, Carl?
I can answer that actually, Tony.
Thank you.
We do have Derbyshire Community Bank. It's not for tonight, but we did do a campaign a few years ago which involved dressing up as a loan shark and dancing in the street. But we did a lot of work to raise the profile of the credit union, and we have just reignited that relationship with them. So we are also exploring conversations with the community outreach team at HSBC to see what they can potentially offer around supporting our customers around managing finances. So I think we're looking at a variety of different options, but next week we have got a meeting with the credit union to see what more we can do.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing was you mentioned about in the Appendix 2 about contents insurance, and your recommended provider won't provide contents insurance for certain properties because of flood risks. Are you doing anything to address that for those properties?
Bear with me. Sorry, Tony, which part of it is it on? Sorry, I'm on Appendix 2.
It's in the Appendix 2.
I found it.
Right at the end. It talks about AON, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I found
you
it.
have to withdraw insurance, contents insurance, because of flood risks. So you're looking for new providers, but I wondered.
Yeah, I would have to check up on that for you, Tony. I don't know what the latest position is on that, I'm afraid.
But it's a question of those properties which are at flood risk. Are we doing?
Yeah. What can we do to? Yeah, I will find out for you on that one.
You happy with that, Tony? Helen will get back to you. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to say that I just think that this is such a positive and proactive approach, that we know that our customers are going to be struggling, and to have this policy and then an action plan attached to it as well, to show kind of like how we can look at things going forward, how we can measure it. The action plan's for 3 years, which is really good as well.
Good, yeah.
And I just think it is a really good example of how Derby Homes is proactive is kind of like thinking ahead, thinking about its customers, thinking about the issues that affect its customers, and looking at what we can do to try to put some solutions and help in place around that. Yeah, so that's all I want to say really, but yeah, I think it's really good, Helen, so thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you.
I could steal a cliche here and say we're putting our customers first, and it's nice to see. Oh,
it was just it was just a bit of an update on the insurance question as well, in that it's just been confirmed to me that the Environmental Agency will do a re-evaluation as well. So
there you go.
We can update that in the minutes as well, Tony.
Yeah. Are we happy to pass this to operational board?
Yes.
It's got a big thumbs up, Ellen. There you go. First time.
Thank you.
Well done. That brings us on to, I think it's Mark next, isn't it?
Well, you bypassed me.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Carl, got it here. Carl, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually a report of the director, and Claire's obviously sent her apologies for tonight, so it's fallen to me. But because you don't want to hear my dulcet tones, we have got Mark here tonight. Mark's been very much involved in the refreshing of this policy. So I thought, rather than, well, Holly's already called me out anyway for clearly not writing the report she has, so I can't really take the credit for this one. So I'll hand over to Mark Watson, our new Empty Homes coordinator, and I'll let him present it to the board.
Thank you, Carl. Hi, everyone.
Evening, Mark.
As Carl says, I'm the new Empty Homes coordinator for Derby Homes. I've been in post for about 12 weeks now, so really enjoying the role, and a lot of challenges and a lot of work that we're doing around the empty home process at the moment. So, but today I'm here to present the Empty Homes Management Policy to the board for approval for 2023 to 2026. Things to note is this policy was originally developed back in 2020 following an internal audit of the empty home process, and is reviewed and updated every 3 years. So this 3 years are up, and we've had a look through it again. We've made some recommendations and some alterations and some changes to reflect the kind of new process that we do here with empty homes, and we're asking the board to approve it. So things to note, key things to note around the policy is that obviously the policy outlines how we deal with empty homes and the stages that we go through to make sure that we're delivering a high quality end product to our customers, and complying with all things that we need to comply with in terms of delivering empty properties to customers. One of the kind of big things for me is we're looking at changing the way that we talk about empty properties here at Derby Homes. So historically, I think Derby Homes, and probably across the rest of the country, we refer to empty properties as void properties, and to me that's kind of a very cold term, and doesn't really mean much to our customers. So
I agree.
We're wanting to sort of step back from using the word void property, and start encouraging and spread the message across Derby Homes that these are empty homes, and homes for our customers. So one of the other things that we looked at when we reviewed the policy was that it was kind of down to Steve, who's here, and Jim, really to sort of monitor and to ensure that accountability of this policy. However, what we've kind of looked at as part of my role is looking across all 4 different service areas at Derby Home, and actually realising that all sort of 4 service areas involved in the empty homes process, the key part to play in delivering their parts of the empty homes process to ensure properties are re-let quicker, and that again we're delivering that end quality end product to our customers. Obviously it sets out our statutory and regulatory requirements, and the final point obviously is that it's underpinned in section 3.1 of the policy by a number of existing procedures that are quite robust and cover every eventuality, I think, within terms of the empty homes process start to finish. So like I say, I'm here to ask board to recommend the new policy for 2023-2026 if possible.
Well, may I say, Mark, I welcome the nice change from void to empty homes. I think it's more customer friendly.
Absolutely.
Any questions for Mark? You've got away with it, Mark. Ah,
Oh,
Lucy.
Oh, so close.
You're on mute, Lucy.
Keep muting, which I think is good, but this is something which I've raised before, which is the preparation of a home that has been left for the next person. And I know, and I couldn't find explicitly within here, but it might be there in words that you spotted rather than you mean it to you rather than me, is that if I am purchasing a house, I might negotiate for the curtains or the carpets or this piece of furniture or that piece of furniture, and I can't see that opportunity being specifically included within this policy. But within, for somebody who's not had a home before, those can absolutely make the difference to being able to afford something which they want to live in or something that really feels quite cold and unwelcoming. And so I just wondered, is there a phrase there somewhere that covers that sort of flexibility? Because it's not a black and white situation, it's a very grey situation.
Yeah,
some things are not appropriate to leave behind, but some of them can be of value.
Mm-hmm. I think Steve might have his hand up to take this one for you, Lucy.
I mean, I can't. Yeah, sorry, I can't answer the question. Is it if it's explicit enough in the policy, Lucy? We can certainly look at that. But ultimately, over the years, we've more and more looked at what we can do to help new customers move into properties. So, within reason, new carpets, other types of flooring, if they're in good condition, we will very, very often talk to our customers to see if they want to keep them, if they're happy to take them on, and work with them on that basis, and other things as well. Obviously, sometimes there's some health and safety issues with certain things, but more and more we've got to recognise, particularly in the times we live in, that moving to the new house that's completely empty is expensive to do something about. So the more times we can help our customers, and I think carpets is the best one.
Yeah,
it's very expensive to carpet a property. I've just moved house and it's expensive. So if we can find carpets that the customer's happy to take on, they're in good condition, they're safe, they're not trip hazards and things like that, then absolutely we need to do that more and more. But maybe we can talk to Mark and see if there's anything in the policy that needs to be made more explicit, because it is in the lettable standard that we try and do that. So, but it's a good point.
Okay, so it's just bringing together the existing standard that I think is already referenced there, lettable standard.
10.2, somebody's just referred to 10.2.
Yeah.
10.2.
Yes, it says there, yeah.
It says where goods are left in the property at the end of tenancy, we will either dispose or store the items. But that's dispose or store, not leave within negotiation.
No, that's about if a tenant leaves their own property in the property,
gift the incoming tenant with suitable and in line with procedure.
Disposal of goods
that probably
is more
covers
about
it.
if they leave things.
Yeah, that probably covers it. Thank you.
Okay.
I know we did that. It was good to see it in writing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tony, was you?
Yeah, just a quick one on that. Also in 10.2, it says you'll take out cookers and fridges and things like that. I'd have thought, they're fairly expensive items for somebody moving in who's never had a house before. Can't you do a sort of safety check?
If Steve's happy for me to answer this one, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. So when goods are left, white goods are left by people leaving their properties, if we were to allow those appliances to remain, then yes, they would need an electrical check. But with our furniture pack items, we then do an annual service of those electrical items to make sure that they're in good working order. So if we were to leave a previous tenant's belongings on, there would be a sort of future maintenance cost in terms of testing those items. But what we do offer as part of our escorted viewing process is with any new customer, as a part of the escorted viewing process, that we discuss any furniture pack requirements that they might have. And if they do require any sort of additional white goods or furniture, we offer those as part of the sign-up process. they become sort of a service charge, a rented item that they pay a service charge on, which covers the maintenance and any sort of future replacement of those items if necessary.
Yeah, I understand that, but once you do that, then that property is permanently on a furniture pack and you can't get rid of it, I understand.
It's not
Whereas
easy.
if you just sort of said, you know, do you want to save this cooker or this fridge, and not put it on the furniture pack, but just do a quick sort of electrical safety check, I'd have thought you could leave it.
We can't though, Tony, just do a quick electrical safety check and then it's no longer our responsibility, or a gas safety check because there could be a gas cooker in there.
Yeah.
The issue is once once that tenant has that cooker, then in theory we're responsible for servicing it.
Yeah.
And we often have issues as well where we then also, when the cooker breaks down, often the tenant will come back to say you need to replace it. So it's a difficult one sometimes with items that are, you know, are relatively, if they don't work or they become dangerous, it can be iffy really. So it's not something we would never do, gift, but it's something we're wary of because of the health and safety implications as much as anything. So in all cases of being able to work with a tenant, whatever it is, we'll work with them, but obviously sometimes it becomes a bit more difficult depending on what the item actually is.
Thanks for that, Steve. Carl, were you going to say something now?
Yeah, I think it kind of covers some of the points that have been said, but I think what's crucial to this policy is the number of other procedures that feed into it. So, you know, the furniture pack is not the one and only thing that we do. So our tenancy sustainment team, for example, access grants on behalf of new customers moving into properties so they can purchase their own white goods, so they can get set up with bedding and things like that. We've also got a project that we're developing at the moment around linking in through a network of charity shops across the city to explore where they've got excess goods, because, you know, a cutlery set is a cutlery set. It doesn't need to be matching necessarily to get you up and running, does it? You know what I mean?
Wow.
And so actually, you know, there's quite a number of shops. So we are constantly, and that's a project we're developing with the Poverty Commission. So I think there's a whole myriad of different initiatives that are underway and projects planned for the future where we can support people to have their own items rather than rely on, you know, rented goods.
Thanks for that, Carl. Lucy, did you want the final word?
Yeah, I very much welcome, Carl, what you just said about charity shops. I was going to ask whether decent white goods, which may be in good condition, but we haven't tested, whether we're offering those to those charity shops which will take and test them themselves and keep them in the market that way.
Part of the aspiration, the objective of us doing this project is to reduce waste and recycle, upcycle, and obviously reduce costs for new people. But it's a real challenge because we've tried before to do like furniture projects, and obviously there was a furniture project in the city. So it's trying to find a third party, a partner that would be able to operate that scheme rather than ourselves. But you'd also be amazed how well connected we are through, you know, other groups like Food for Thought and some of the connections they've got with, you know, Derby City Mission and other, you know, faith sector organisations.
Is it the Heart Foundation at the bottom of Babington Lane? Because they deal with a lot of furniture.
They do.
And
furniture.
there's Mind in Alveston.
Yeah, Lighthouse also. Lighthouse have got shops in every district centre practically across Derby, and they do trade in electrical goods. So, you know, that we're constantly looking at how we can, you know, support our customers. Is I guess what I want to say.
I think Steve's just trying to sum it up here.
And it will save the disposal costs as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Go on, Steve.
Yeah, just adding really to Carl and Lucy's comments. We have actually held meetings, Lucy, with the YMCA and other groups to see if they will be interested in taking on things like furniture and so on. So yeah, it is something that we've looked at, because obviously, you know, again, anything we can do to help the next person, be it our next tenant or customer or somebody else, is a good thing. So yeah, we've talked about that, and there's sometimes little difficulties with it, but it's something that we're trying to push a bit.
It's all good stuff. Well, Mark, I think it's a very informative report, and I think it's good that the things that are on offer here we've heard about today. So, yeah, that's good. Are we happy, operational board, to recommend and accept this proposal? I think so. Yep. Okay, there you go, Mark. You can sit until the end if you
Thank
want.
you, everyone.
Or you can go home and have that drink. You're probably at home already, aren't you?
And yeah, I'm hiding in my son's bedroom at the moment. they're under orders to be quiet. So I'll leave if that's okay. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks.
Cheers, then. Ta-da.
A7. Now, Steve, this has got to be yours.
It is, yes, damp, mould and condensation policy. So a fairly topical subject at the moment. So ultimately, as we're all aware, Derby Homes have dealt with these sort of issues for many years, and obviously in the last few years, certainly in the last year or so, it's become a lot more prevalent. So it's been felt because of the housing regulator, because of the consumer standards regulations, that we needed to put something in writing to sort of inform our tenants about the situation with damp, mould and condensation. And a term that came up through COVID predominantly really was this keeping our customers safe, warm and dry. And that fits really, really well with this particular issue of damp, mould and condensation, because that's what it's all about. So I think the idea of this policy is to really help our customers understand the issues that they can suffer, and also more importantly sometimes why it happens. So there can be issues and causes of damp that have got absolutely nothing to do with our customer. So for example, if we have rising damp or a leaking roof, the customer can't affect that in any way other than tell us to sort it out. But then obviously another part of mould can be condensation. And obviously sometimes our customers can help with that and make a difference. And I think in fairness, and the policy alludes to it quite a bit, in the last couple of years, we've tried to be a lot more proactive with our customers, even if the reasons of condensation might be that they can't afford to heat it, or they're not opening windows, or other issues such as that, that we actually try and work with them to help them to resolve that issue. So it's not a matter of saying, well, it's your fault this has happened at all. It's more about, right, if we've got a problem with condensation, what's causing it? And I think this policy, I'm sure this policy tries to explain that, and then what we can do about it together. So sometimes we'll fit positive ventilation systems to make the situation better. And we'll explain things like heating, and if they're struggling with finances because of fuel poverty, we've got places for them to go now to talk to people and try and help with that as best we can, obviously in the circumstances at the moment. And then other ways that they can ventilate, like opening windows and trickle vents and so on. So this policy is all about, as best we can, if there's the area of damp, mould and condensation, why is it happening, what can we do to make it better, and you'll see in the next probably few months, and maybe at the next board meeting, our processes are being refined and updated. We're not far away from appointing a new staff member that will go out and visit our customers that have damp or mould, should I say, and find out why that is, help them with that, potentially help them clean it down, maybe leave them with something to help them do it. Or if there's bigger issues in the property, come to our surveyors and then we can get in and sort it out. So we're in there as quick as we can be to get these problems resolved, and also determining why they're happening. And then the final part of this, I think, moving forward will be, we need to follow up with things. So once we've visited and we've done something, we want to go back within 3 months or in 3 months after to make sure it's still working. So we're not just leaving them to it, but we're trying to find ways that we can work together with them to help them be able to manage the situation. So yeah, I think you'll see a lot of changes, and this is the first part of it really that just sort of really puts down as simply as we can to sort of explain what we're trying to do and how we're going to move forward.
I think before I move on to Jan, I think that for me, the section headed Key Responsibilities and Duties is a good summary of the policy. Jan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Steve. I think that this is like such a key area going forward, and it's something that we have got to be so proactive with. Is that we've seen all of the stories in the media, and I think kind of like historically, as you've said, there has been that attitude across social landlords, not necessarily Derby Homes, but across social landlords, that actually it's the tenant's fault, it's the tenant's lifestyle, you know, and ultimately we as the landlord are responsible for that property, and need to be taking action where there is damp for whatever reason, that mould and condensation is there, is to be taking action to sort it out, because otherwise we're leaving our customers in potentially with sort of health hazards, and we've seen the absolute tragic consequences, you know, of that in other social housing providers. So I think this is really good, as you say, as the starting point for it, and I think it is, as I say, we have got to kind of, that has got to be that culture change, not just with us, but across social housing providers, about working together with customers, and, you know, accepting that that people will have issues. Just speaking to a colleague who owner occupier, has never ever had problems, live in an older house, never had problems previously with any mould or anything, because of the issues around the cost of heating and stuff, had actually started turning her heating off, and has noticed that she's actually now got black mould, which she said I would never have, that's, you know, never happened to me. And it's kind of like, it's understanding that our customers are going to be in, you know, the situation with poverty and stuff at the minute is so bad, and with prices still being high for heating, it's something that isn't going to go away, and we're going to probably have more of it. And we do have to be proactive and recognise that people are quite often doing the best that they can, and that we have to work with them and you know, and help.
I think I really appreciate those comments, Jan. And I think one of the ways that might make the board feel quite positive is one of the ways we've started moving things forward in the last few months now is, obviously in the olden days in housing, people used to have housing visitors and all sorts of visits, and people regularly went into our tenants and customers' homes. And that frankly hasn't happened for a number of years for various reasons. The only area of our whole business that guarantees access every year is our gas servicing team, because we have to service every single one of our properties annually for gas, don't we? So ultimately what we started a few months ago was we got all our gas engineers together, and we had a real strong meeting with them that they are our eyes and ears, and if you go into a home and you see damp or mould, or in fairness anything that concerns you, we really need you to come and talk to us about it, and you need to take photographs and come back, and then we can help our customers. That's not helped Craig so much in day to day, because actually the response from the gas engineers has been good, and they've come back and said, and sometimes it's been vulnerable people that have not reported anything. In fact, most of the times it's not that we don't know about these issues, but now we do. Clearly we're going to do something about it, and we've had a really, really good response. And that's raised a lot of repairs for us to go and do, but you know, we'll deal with that in a different way. But ultimately that is our best way to sort of help customers, and we have come across some really vulnerable customers that have just never told us about it and have lived through it, and it's really, you know, never report repairs, so we wouldn't know about it, and that's a way that we can be proactive and make a difference, rather than just, well, you need to tell us and then we'll help you. It's you're right what you said earlier, it's gone past that now, and we've got to be as proactive as you can do, and I think we're all on the same page with that. I'd agree with you 100%.
Yep. And the good news, Tony, is the system's working and they're reporting things. I've lost the plot here, so I'll go Tony and Lucy. I wasn't sure which one was which, but I'm sure you both got valid points.
I think Lucy
Tony
was first. Ladies first.
Okay.
There you go, Lucy.
But I think this is a really nice policy. It's nicely balanced between Derby Homes responsibility and tenant responsibility, and doesn't put one above the other.
No.
It's definitely a partnership. So I think the balance is lovely. Before we publish it, can we put some paragraph numbers or page numbers or something on it? Because there were two things that I wanted to ask about. One is in the second paragraph under scope, which is page 2, which is quite easy to find. And it says this policy sets out to make clear how we will respond to reports of damp and mould in the homes of our tenants and the surrounding buildings we are responsible for. Does that mean things like meeting rooms or I just think it's quite an open statement.
It can do, but it could also mean corridors and communal areas in blocks of flats and things like that. So we are liable, and I don't mean that in a nasty way, but we are responsible better for the communal areas and corridors that our customers live in as well. It's not just in your house or in your flat or something. It's the whole property itself. So the whole property we're responsible for, to making sure within reason it's you know, it's as good as it can be.
Yeah, whether it can be made clearer or not, I'm not sure. Now the other one I'll have to search down and find. It comes under how we help our customers, but I haven't got a number for it. You see, this is how I know I'm reading numbers. Oh bother! Who can tell me which page it would be on if only it had page numbers?
How we help our customers is the very
Here we
last
are.
page.
Oh, it's a slightly different size font. I've got it. Now this says. It says it will, a key area is to improve knowledge and causes of condensation, along with giving tenants information we will look to. Now, this doesn't at any point say it'll be tenants who've got problems. It just says refer tenants to our energy efficiency team. But I think it needs to be refer relevant tenants or affected tenants or something like that. Otherwise, referring everybody, and we haven't got enough capacity to deal with all these people anyway. Particularly number 2 on energy advice in the later paper. So it just needs to qualify which tenants we're talking about.
Okay, thanks for that.
Okay, although I can do that. The only thing I would say is if we have a customer that comes to us and says, I'm struggling to heat my house and I want financial advice from the energy efficiency team, would do that whether they're damp or mould. And in fairness, that might stop them getting damp or mould by us giving them that advice. So, but I take your point.
No,
we can put something about it.
No, Steve, it's just that this is proactively, along with giving tenants information we will look to, refer tenants to our energy efficiency team. It doesn't say which tenants.
Okay, fine. Okay,
so this is everybody. So it's along there, giving relevant tenants information.
Relevant tenants. Okay, I've got that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, pleased with all these comments. I think this is a good policy. The only thing that I think is missing as the leaseholder representative is to remind you that you're responsible at least for damp within leasehold flats. You mentioned it for communal areas, but you're responsible for the structural integrity of our properties. And there's nothing in there to refer to it. I'd like to see something in to remind people that you have a responsibility to leaseholders as well. Now, that might be simply as changing tenants to customers. But I'd like to see something there.
Okay. I totally agree with that, Tony. If a leaseholder has got rising damp, we are responsible, for example, for the structure of the property. So we would do that. So that's a gimme. You're totally right. If we need to change to say
just
more
to make sure it's
customers,
included,
that's fine.
because I see people turning around and saying, no, you're not. Doesn't affect, this doesn't apply to you.
Yeah, you can rest assured we would always be looking after you guys as well.
And the other thing is that towards the end, you say if you've had to do any damp work, you'll revisit it in 3 months' time.
Yes.
I think if you've given people advice on condensation, you ought to do the same.
We are going to do.
We are,
well, mould, condensation, and damp. It will be
an umbrella.
It will be all customers. So this new post we've got, which is going to go in and visit, potentially we will be revisiting after either ourselves or Carl's team. Sorry, I should say as well. Housing office. I'm missing out. A group here. Our housing officers will be visiting after 3 months to visit our customers and see how they're getting on.
Yeah.
Customers, including
Okay.
leaseholders. So absolutely, that's going to be not just people with damp, but people with that have experienced mould issues. So that will include condensation. So there's nobody excluded from this because it's just as bad for them, isn't it? Yeah. So I confirm that's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, and while you might charge leaseholders for any work you do, it's reminded me to go and contact Pat Butler to see whether it's included under our buildings insurance.
Oh, yeah, fair point. Carl?
I guess really it was just to remind that this is obviously a draft policy.
Yes.
So the whole point of tonight is to bring it to the operational board. So all of these comments are great because we can build this in. It will ultimately also be consulted once we've got this, once we've integrated the comments from tonight, it'll also go through the virtual panel, given the profile of this, and then actually it will then be approved by main board. So tonight is fantastic because it is about making sure that we've captured all of those other elements, but the feedback's been really good. It's always going to be a really difficult, challenging area, isn't it? And I think the feedback we've got. I'm looking at Layla because I'm sure she's captured it verbatim, and we can build all of that into the policy, then go through the virtual panel, and then obviously feed in your comments tonight, and ultimately it will go to main board.
Thanks everyone for your input, and I think it's good, I think, on both sides how it's been dealt with, so thanks. And Ian, you've waited long enough and patient. You can now have your grounds maintenance service.
Put my mic on. Yeah, so then when you hear me gugging my tea. So okay, thanks, Chap. Okay. We've talked about this. It's cropped up many times in the past year. So we're about to start the growing season, although it probably started before we had this cold snap, actually. So we said we'd go away and have a look at what we would some proposals for delivering the service this year. The first thing I'd highlight in the report is that the on the finance section, that we usually refer to that last, but I'll refer to that first to start with here, is that we're continuing the staffing and equipment levels at current budget levels, so costs expected to be contained within the planned budget for 23-24. So we're carrying on with the establishment's the same, the level of equipment's the same. The costs will be within budget. So
that's good.
What we're going to do is, so based on last year, one of the things that was a success last year was the amount of data that we got on the service. We've got something called white space, which we use to report on visits to site, productivity of the teams, impact of a shortage of resources, that sort of thing. So we've used that data and had a good look at it over the winter. And so the teams are being realigned for next year. So the balance between the teams, number of teams on gardening, number of teams on mowing, and a flexible team, which will move between the other two work streams depending on growth, so to speak, or climatic conditions, should help respond to work which is, excessive amounts of work. If you remember last year, we had this crazy period in the spring where between April and the beginning of June, where the mowing team couldn't really keep up with the rapid growth rate of the grass.
I remember that,
And if you think after the middle of June, nothing grew for about 3 months. So it went from sublime to ridiculous. So really, what we're trying to do here is move the teams around to respond to changes in growth rates. We've also realigned the teams and realigned the areas in which they cover. There wasn't really a decent split between the two teams. It was a bit ad hoc. So using the data again, they've split the teams into more manageable chunks. They've also, which is quite interesting, realigned their start and finish times of the teams such that they have a better day's work on a Friday. I didn't realise, but the fact is they used to stop at midday on a Friday. Well, it basically meant that they really, by the time you got going on Friday, it's time to finish and start your weekend.
Yeah.
So Friday will be a more productive day. So rather than losing a half hour at the end of a Monday to Thursday, you should get some more productivity out of them. We've got a full establishment at the moment, and the focus is on a full establishment of permanently employed staff rather than a raft of agency staff. There are one creditworthy aspect of their HR over that side is they're very proactive in terms of the way they recruit the staff. And so we start in the season with a full establishment of staff. So that should help once this snow's cleared. And I even understand on Sunday it's going to be 8 or 9 degrees. So everyone will be waking up and starting to grow, I'm sure, after having all this moisture on it. So yes, so we're in a position where the budget is the budget. We have the team we've got, so it's about working smarter, working clever, using the data we've got, and managing the staff better, managing absenteeism better.
That's good.
Some of the slight creative things is we will be looking and consulting with customers on various schemes where we can sort of convert areas to wildflower areas and change the balance of planting on certain schemes. Also looking to off-hire vehicles, some of the vehicles that they've got, such that they reduce the number of vehicles they've got on hire, which will help maintain and stabilise costs. So that's
it.
Let's see how we get on. I mean, let's just see how we get on. It's quite good in a way that your budget is your budget, and you've got your establishment and you've got your plant. Let's work with it and try and work practically. The management team at our end, we get weekly reports. We're going to sit down with them more regularly than we have done in the past, and hopefully we get better performance for all our customers this growing season.
Right, Jean.
Thank you, Ian, as well. This is really positive, and just wanted to thank you for all of the work that you and your team must have done, because I know that we gave you quite a hard time when you came back previously, and it's really good to see some of the sort of changes and the creativity and having to work. You're right, having to work within your budget sometimes makes you look at how you can do things differently and do some of that changing around. And all of the things you've mentioned are all really, really positive. It's really pleasing about the recruitment, and in the report there was sort of lots of detail about the different methods used, and obviously that's been really successful. But then also we've seen as well about the improved sort of management of the teams as well, and looking at how those resources are used, but obviously if sickness is down as well, that the teams are feeling perhaps sort of more motivated and more included as well in it all. So I think it's actually really good news, and I'm hopeful that it will all be reflected in the performance as well. But just thank you, and really well done to all of your team working with the council on this.
I'd just like to reiterate Jan's words. We did give you a hard time, and things have improved. And I think, Jan, going forward, it's good policy, and I think hopefully it will come to fruition.
Well, the proof of the pudding will be, because I'm sure if Tony rings me up and tells me the grass is 6 inches around his area, then it won't have worked. So we'll just have to be
and following that, Tony,
I don't mind 6 inches as long as it's not scalped.
Tony, you wanted to add to that?
I agree with Jan's comments. It's you've made a real positive start this year, as far as I can see. Just as you say, just hope you can keep it up through the long summer months. I think retain staff and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I think the key is April and May. Let's just let's just keep and at the same time keep a good handle on the garden service, because the garden service was a success last year. So we don't want to impact on that, No. So but as I say, we just be vigilant.
Thanks, Tony. Well, I think, Ian, you can feel proud of yourself tonight, because Jan's praised the policy. Tony's happy and I'm happy, so that's got to be a win-win-win situation.
It's all covered in snow at the moment, Chair. So
you wait. I'll be on your case.
Chair, and Lucy's happy as well. So
Lucy's happy. Yes.
So all of us.
Happy bunnies. Follow that, everybody. On that happy note, I think we've covered all the topics in the A and B part of the meeting. So what we'll do is we'll close down the public meeting of Josh. You can close down in a minute the public section, and the date and time of the next meeting is the 8th of June. I'm not aware of any other business from tonight, unless I've missed something. So Josh, if you could disconnect the connection, we'll carry on to part C, the confidential items. Thanks for listening and watching us.